Hey guys, and welcome back to the Trihard workshop. The internet is on fire with Killteams at the minute, and whether you're unboxing your Octarius Kriegers or bashing 20 Chaos Cultists, I'm sure your mind is turning to your battleboard. The new orc terrain is great, but we got really excited about the bombed out factory in the 2.0 release trailer. So Q put together a series on how to build a 6-part modular Killteam board, scratch built from stuff you can find around the house. We'll be leveraging our core principles of building on a budget with techniques that anyone can use. We want as many gamers blasting away on their own fully realised battlefields. If you're a returning viewer, you'll recognise these techniques from our Concrete and Rust videos. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you enjoy the video, consider giving us a sub. We're starting to gain a bit of momentum here, and we appreciate every single one of you. And with that, let's get into the build. I'll be splitting the voiceover with Q today. He'll be getting into the nitty-gritty of the build itself, but first, let's have a conversation about the fundamentals of war. Killteam battle boards are 22 by 30 inches. There are some key considerations when planning your boards. Q sketching out a few thoughts with them in mind. You need a good setup area with enough space to land your squads, one at either end of the board, equidistant from the centre. Next, you'll want to think about the walls. Lines of sight is a big consideration with such built-up terrain. So, how many walls bisect line of sight? Where are the doors into the next chamber? Are there windows to shoot through? Levels are also important. We're going for 3 here. The ground floor, which will feel enclosed and maze-like, with 2 first-level platforms in the corners, and a large second floor platform at the centre. We recommend measuring your levels to the height of a bigger model, anywhere between 30 to 50 millimeters. So this piece is going to be modular and will have 6 independent chambers. A few things we want to include are kill corridors to maximise flamer damage, choke points for high armour models, tunnels and side passages for scouts and flankers, and enough cover to promote smart movement, but not so much to get in the way of the game. So let's hear what Q's got to say now that he's getting into the build.
Yeah, it's class when you see it in this speed because it looks like you're a legend drawer. You know what I mean? It's like he's awesome, man. Look at the pace he's doing that. He stays in between the lines never. Cheers, Andy. This week we're back again. We're starting the kill board, as you can see, 1 of 6, and these things are 10 by 11 inches, and then 6 of them will make 30 by 22. Just base it with a bit of PVA glue to stick a piece of cardboard on, just a bit in the middle, and then spread it around. Sure to get it on the edges. Don't even use a clean brush. And stick your bit of cardboard down on top. Make sure you've got it all in line. Scrim tape again. And you just use this to make out pathways. I'm going to have an opening at the top here, like an entrance. And you just line these up as best you can. It's not... You can use that or a ruler if you want. See, it's an old floor tile, asbestos-free floor tile. Then here, just glue on random bits of card, nice shapes, and once again working with the shape and the negative space as well. Kind of give you like layers of detail or depth. A bit more of the scrim tape just cut up into random shapes, make grids, just to fill out some of the empty space. I'm trying to keep most of this like flat materials because models are going to be walking on top of them, so you kind of have to have it as flat as possible but still put textures down rather than just a plain mat. They're like the old, you know, like Waterworld, old industrial settings. There's a fella called Urban Explorer, like loads of his built, the stuff he goes through is all like rusted out factories and abandoned places. They're just like faux grids on the floor, you know, like grates and stuff to imply that it goes down deeper, you know, because I don't imagine this being on the ground floor of any of these like worlds or whatever, you know, being probably more or less 100 to 1,000 feet in the sky. And just coffee stirrers here to give you a bit of like steel bonding, or flat iron, flat steel or whatever, like the for the edges of your walkways. Just straighten some of them up, they're not all entirely straight. Once you've got all that done, you've got your base ready to go. Well, I'm cutting out a circle here because we're going to put this sink fitting to be used in it. It looks kind of like a distill. Once we get that in position, a few stripes on there for bonding. Now the earphone piece from a mic. This wire's a thin enough gauge to use on the floor, and it doesn't really disrupt the model space too much, so get a load of this, roll it out on the mat to straighten it out. I was using sticky tape here to kind of keep it all together and keep them neat. It works out pretty well, but it's still pernickety. And then continue to do that to all the shapes you want. Once you've got the shapes you want, you can cut it free from the tape. And because they're all stuck together, you can bend them in shapes, they'll bend together. It's much easier than bending them individually. Once again here, just doing a bit more detailing or greeble with some basic cardstock and doing odd and matching shapes, all different, just whatever takes your fancy. And you've got multiple textures on the floor at once. Let's fill in blank spaces just. Rhinestones, or rivets in our case. Got a bit of a technique on the go for this one, sliding them straight off onto where you want to use them rather than trying to pick them off, and then sealing them with a piece of PVA glue after you've got them all in place. But I'm not going to do that technique right away. I haven't learned it yet. I didn't even do it in this one. It must be the next one I start doing it. Seal them in with PVA glue, a bit extra on them wires just to make sure they don't lift over time. You know, with models and all and people going over them, it just helps keep it all in place. Bit on the scrim tape to stop it from lifting too. More cardstock. Cut out. This is the bonding on the sink trap, which is what we're going to call the distill for now. Obviously you can't do this with coffee stirrers, so use cardstock instead. Then rhinestone it for rivets. Really sets the scale. Then a bit more cardstock detail and just so they're not just plain edges or whatever. A few wee folded bits, a few extra rivets on it. Bit of the scrim tape is grating or whatever on it. Glue it down. Easier said than done. Then I'm trying to hide as much of these large threads as possible, so here's another plumbing fitting, but it isn't off this. Glue it over the top to hide all the threads. bit of hot glue to keep it in place. A lot of hot glue to keep it in place. And because this doesn't exactly fit, you kind of have to keep it, think about it to get it in the right space. This is an old mic from an Xbox, and just, I don't know where that wee brass fitting came from. Tempted to glue this onto the side, wasn't having it, so I ended up just gluing it with the other glue onto the card eventually. There you go. That headphone piece just fitted in there nicely, and it had like wee rivets around the edge of it. Then this here, trying to fill this in with a cap, there's a washing machine hose, but it doesn't fit entirely, so I'm gonna mess about with it for a bit. End up using a lid from a bottle of juice. Card doesn't work, it's just not strong enough. Try cutting a hole in, doesn't work. Move on to something else. Glue this in place. When you finally get that done, then this is like a sports drink lid, trying to get it to stay in both of them. Used a bit of a chopstick, fit inside the hose, and it would fit inside the thing and be able to backfill it with glue. Hold it for an undisclosed amount of time. It's really the only shape I could get it in, so that's where it's going. And then once it's finally glued in place, move on. There's a bit of a hole in the end of this. We're going to fill it with wire, so it's not just a blank end. Some twisted foam cable, garden wire. Cut to the rough size I wanted it. And then just glued on literally a piece of straw to cap it off, and then once that cooled down and dried, glued it again, and then glued it straight to the floor. So it's as if it's going down into some pipe. And this hole in the top, same again, some garden wire and some hair bobbles. And then twist them around. The garden wire's got a bit of strength to it. Once again, butt end into a straw, and then glued to the floor. Base it black. And that all really always ties it all together, then black coats. Then we're going for the same rust technique. Use down a watered version of the paint, and then let it dry, and then use an unwatered paint to go over the top of it, but not completely. Once again, stippled all over, and kind of gives you like two separate tones in the same sort of range. Here you can see the second coat of the unwatered paint going on over the top. Gives it a real rusty look. Once you've given it a good solid coat and it's dried out, a bit of an orange wash or a yellowy wash, and this dries away to nothing. You'll not even really notice it on the camera, but it does do some bit of heat gun action. Some of these floor and wall panels, I'm going to use them as wall panels here. Just getting the rough positioning of where I want it to sit. Taking off a bit of the layered just to bring it all flush so it isn't holding it up. And then once you've got where you want it done, get a bit of beaded glue on it. And then glue it into place, and just using a square edge there to make sure it's sitting up vertically straight. Here's a few more I made, a few shorter ones to go along the shorter side. And some I-beams made out of coffee stirrers. Here's one without paint so you can see what it is. And these slot in nicely because they're all the width of the coffee stirrer. Into these, make joins, and then you can fill them pipes with wire. kind of to bridge the gap. Glue them into place. Try and get them as level as you can. I'm using a square here again. And then once you've got them glued in place, made this wee platform. Just simple details underneath. It's not really going to be seen, it's just not so it doesn't break the immersion if you looked under. Then I played around with the idea of these for way too long before I came to experimenting with a few different shapes and ideas to hold it. Use more of the I-beams, just cut them up to the length and size you need them, and then glue them into position. Should all fit together roughly, they're all roughly the same width. The later to clear away them straggly bits. Nightmare. Trying to level this out to get a measurement. Glue another I-beam in underneath and a wee L bracket. Just use the super glue here for it, but you could use hot glue, it doesn't really matter. They ended up getting hot glued anyway, eventually. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you'll get a bit of a blooper reel. Find out the reason why those things ended up needing hot glued after all. Nice one. Now this is a bit of gardening tape, and just spiral this around it as best you can and as consistent as you can, and once you've got that all stuck down, use a bit of yellow, stipple it on. You'll need a couple of layers because of this black paint and the type of hose it is. Once you've got that fairly well coated, you can take the tape off and the satisfying bit. There you go, hazard stripes. And there you go, there's your one of 6 Killteam board, and hope you've enjoyed it. If you do have any comments, throw them down below, and if you are feeling generous, a wee like and a sub would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Cheers, Q! That's the first chamber in our Killteam board complete. You can see it already has huge modular potential, but just wait until the 2nd and 3rd floor levels are complete. We've also got some narrative objects in the works, with the first, a servitor console, appearing on the channel just a few weeks ago. One of the workhorses of this build are the walls. Our last video was a full rundown on their construction, so be sure to check that out. If you enjoyed the content and want to support the channel, we'd really appreciate it if you give us your sub. And tune in next week when we'll have the 2nd part of our Killteam board. Till then, try hard.
On the thing rather than doing the close-up. Here, take this.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Oh, man. Well, hopefully there's enough glamour shots on that to work with.
I'm sorry, man.
It's sweet.
That's a moronic thing to do.
Right.